Have you ever met one of those people who just can't be stopped? It's like they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I have.
Me too.
What's their mystique?
Nothing stops these people.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. You're about to meet some of the most amazing people.
Stop. Don't stop.
They've accomplished their goals despite insurmountable odds. They beat adversity, physical hardship, and traumatic events, and emerged triumphantly. They're people just like you and me, and they're winners. Are you unstoppable? Here's Frankie to show you how.
Hello there, and welcome to Mission Unstoppable Radio. I am your host, Frankie Picasso, and I am so glad to be here with you today. Do I ever have an amazing special guest for you? You are going to meet a man today who has led an inspired life, for which I know he is extremely grateful. However, we don't get anything for nothing in this world, and in return, he travels 360 days a year to countries, inspiring audiences around the globe. He speaks and he teaches, and he's a leadership expert, and he's a transformational specialist, and he has authored more than 40 books, published in 29 languages, including The Breakthrough Experience, The Values Factor, The Heart of Love, Inspired Destiny, The Gratitude Effect. You're going to hear all about those and more today. He's produced over 60 CDs and DVDs. He's covered subjects such as development in relationships, wealth, education, and business. He's created over 72 different courses that are designed to assist people like you to activate leadership and empower all 7 areas of their lives: financial, physical, mental, vocational, spiritual, family, and social. We're going to learn more about that and more too. My guest today, of course, is none other than Dr. John Demartini, who is considered to be one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior and personal development. And he is also the founder of the Demartini Institute. Please welcome Dr. John Demartini. Welcome, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Frankie.
Do you ever go, oh my God, I did all that?
Well, I don't always talk about it, but sometimes the hosts do, so that's fine.
Of course, yeah. It's very inspiring to me. I just finished the Breakthrough Effect, and I really love that book a lot. And when I was speaking to your staff earlier about, what can I talk to Dr. John about? What can we talk, what's he doing? And I thought, let me start there because that is so empowering. But the one thing that we do on Mission Unstoppable with all of my guests, because it is about being unstoppable in our lives, is to go back to the very beginning. And you have a very special story about your beginning, because looking at the beginning, people would not think that you ended up where you are. And I hope that we can talk about it a little bit. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Awesome. So why don't you give us just a bit about your childhood and about what that looked like?
Well, I had some challenges in my early childhood for sure. I was born with my arm and leg turned in and had to wear braces till I was 4. And then I also had to go to speech pathologist because I couldn't pronounce and make sounds properly. And so that was a bit of a challenge. And I desired to get out of those braces by the time I was 4. And all I wanted to do is run after that. And I guess I've been on the run ever since.
Yeah, I guess so. Did you, looking back, do you think that you got the right parents for you, for what you needed to do in life?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I'm very grateful for my parents. My parents are pretty cool. I wouldn't trade them in for anybody.
It sounds like it. Like when you were, I guess in grade school, your teacher called your parents in and told them that you wouldn't probably learn to read or write or do anything, and that you should go into baseball. I mean, who does that?
I had learning problems for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know how much of a learning problem I had until I got to first grade. And first grade, when they tried to start doing teaching, it just didn't work, and reading. So I started out in a normal reading class, and I went to a remedial reading class, and then I had to wear a dunce cap.
Oh,
so I had to just face the window and wear a dunce cap till I was going to read. And then finally, the teacher said he's not going to do it. So he called my parents in and she said that I'm afraid your son will never be able to read. He'll never be able to write. He'll never communicate, because I wrote backwards. And,
right.
and I won't be able to amount very much, to never go very far in life. And that was sort of real. I mean, I did have learning problems at the time.
Right.
And I made it through the elementary school through asking questions. And what I'm sort of known for today is asking questions. So I think that had another factor. So I'm on the run and I'm asking questions. So I always say that the things in our life actually serve us. We don't see it always at the beginning, but they did serve us. Then I ended up dropping out of school.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
My parents moved from Houston, Texas to Richmond, Texas, which was a low socioeconomic area. And I didn't have any smart kids to get me and help me through finishing elementary, because I used to ask them questions and they'd give me information. And I ended up dropping out. I left school, so became kind of a street kid. I left really home around 13, but I left Houston, Texas and Richmond, Texas, and hitchhiked to California and Mexico at 14. And then made it to Hawaii, panhandling money, and got enough money to fly to Hawaii. It was $86 in those days. And I flew to Hawaii, and so I was a street kid and a surf kid.
You flew to Hawaii to be a surfer, and with your parents' kind of permission, right? Like
my parents dropped me off on the freeway when I was 14. My dad and mom, they had a notarized piece of paper saying that I wasn't a runaway. I was a boy that wanted to go surfing and had a dream. And so they believed that I would somehow make it. And they thought, well, he's not going to make it in school, and it's going to torture him. He can't read and write very well, but he can surf. He's got good balance. And
he's got good balance.
So, let him excel.
Did you have siblings?
I had a sister who wanted to go with me, but they wouldn't let her go. She was 2 years older than I was, but they didn't want a girl to go out on the road like that. But my dad taught me a lot of street smarts, and so he prepared me for kind of being a street kid. Actually, I mean, some people think that's funny. In fact, I was speaking in New York one time, and there was a lady from Child Protective Service attending my talk, and I mentioned the story, and she demanded that she get my dad's contact details, and so I had to give her his cemetery plot because he passed away.
Oh, jeez.
She wanted to report him. I thought that was so hilarious.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh! But just imagine, if all parents, not all kids maybe can run away or go away or whatever. But what if as parents we really listen to our children and what they wanted from life and just encourage it no matter what age, really, It's kind of interesting thought.
I think some people question my parents at the time, I think. But I'm very grateful for that. I mean, I had some challenging experiences and adventures as a teenager, without a question. Came close to death a few times, but I wouldn't pass it up. I wouldn't change anything. When I consider the going through an average life, that I wouldn't take that. I'd take what I did. So
yeah. Well, you tell an interesting story in the book about walking down the street with your surfboard. You run into like these three rednecks, and you know that they're ready to beat up on you or do something nefarious because that's what they do. And you had this thought. Tell us what that thought was.
Well, I was hitchhiking from Houston, Texas to LA. And in those days, Interstate 10 wasn't all complete. It was just spotted. And when I got to El Paso, you had to walk through the downtown area. There was no freeway passing by. So I had to walk through downtown El Paso with a surfboard and a headband and sandals. And it was the 60s. So Cowboys and surfers didn't get along. And as I was going through the town, there were three cowboys that lined up on the sidewalk, and they saw this hippie surfer kid, and they wanted to beat me up. And they lined up, and they weren't going to let me pass through, and I couldn't run in the street. I couldn't go back and outrun them because I had a surfboard and a backpack, and I couldn't go in the store. So I didn't know what to do, and all of a sudden what came to me was something that a surfer did to me one time, and I started growling and barking like a wild animal at the three. And believe it or not, it worked. They just moved to the side, and they thought this guy must be on drugs or something. Yeah. And I just barked and growled at them, and it patterned and interrupted them, and they weren't expecting it. And on the other side of that, when I came through, there was a bum. I thought it was a bum, and he was a guy on the street that was leaning on a lamppost, laughing his ass off, just absolutely laughing because he saw what happened. And he came up, walking up to me, and he put his arm on my shoulder, and he said, "Sonny, that's the funniest dang thing I've ever seen. You took care of them cowpokes like a pro. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And I said, "No, sir, I don't drink coffee. Can I buy you a Coca-Cola?" And I said, "Yes, sir." So he took me down to a malt shop and, had a Coca-Cola with me. This old guy, he was about my age now. I'm 63, so he's about 62, I think. And, he took me there and asked me about if I was a runaway. And I said, "No, my parents dropped me off on the freeway." And he didn't know what to do with that. And he said, you look kind of weird with the surfboard here. You're going to California. And he said, "Are you finished with your Coke?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Then follow me. I got something I want to teach you." And I was a little leery about following some guy. You don't know what's on the.
Yeah.
But I somehow about this guy, he seemed like he was legit. So I followed him a couple blocks, and another couple blocks, and up these steps. And we went to the downtown El Paso library. And there's an information booth there with a lady there, an older lady, kind of a volunteer. And he asked her if she would take care of my surfboard and my duffel bag while I went in the library. And so that's all I owned. So I kind of left it behind the desk there, where she was. And we walked in the library, walked down steps, up some other steps, and he sat me down at a desk and kind of a table. And he went off to the bookshelves, and he came back a minute later, and he lined up, he put 2 books on the table. And he said, "Now, young man, I want to teach you 2 things. And you got to promise me you'll never forget this." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Number 1, it's never judge a book by its cover, because it will fool you. I'm sure you will probably think I'm some old guy on the street. But young man, I'm one of the wealthiest men in the world. I have everything that money can buy. I have planes and cars and homes and businesses. I have everything that money can buy. So don't ever judge a book by its cover, because it will fool you." And then he took my right hand and he stuck it on top of 2 books, Plato and Aristotle. And he set them on there, and he said, "Now, son, you learn how to read, boy. You learn how to read." He said, "Because there's only 2 things they can never take away from you in your life, and that is your love and wisdom. So you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom."
I need to stop you right there because we're going to go to commercial break. Oh my gosh, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Dr. John Demartini.
Don't stop.
That's right, don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
To lose weight, we know that each day we need to burn more calories than we take in through eating, and exercise burns more calories. According to Discovery Health, a 150-pound person will burn about 60 calories while taking a 1-hour nap. 1 hour of sitting and watching television burns about the same. But if that 150-pound person takes a 1-hour brisk walk, then say goodbye to more than 250 calories. Cardio exercise like running, biking, swimming, and brisk walking are the best modes of exercise to burn the highest amount of calories and will get the endorphins flowing in your body. Those feel-good neurotransmitters boost your mood naturally. So use exercise to burn calories, lose weight, and to feel good. I'm Annette Hammond. To hear other fitness and weight loss tips, visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network, radio with a cutting edge.
It's words you never heard.
Christmas traditions vary around the world. Citizens of Finland visit the sauna on Christmas Eve and listen to the National Piece of Christmas radio broadcast. Norway is the birthplace of the Yule log cake, and in Greece, many people believe in goblins that cause mischief during the 12 days of Christmas. Captain John Smith drank the first eggnog in his 1607 Jamestown settlement. Nog comes from the word grog, which refers to any drink made with rum. Since Christmas arrives in Australia in the middle of summer, jingbangs or crowds of Aussies celebrate at the beach with beer and Skittles. This is the time each year where we have to climb up to the sky parlor or attic to fetch our Christmas lights. What's the word for decorating till we're about to collapse? Flip-floppist.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back to Mission Unstoppable Radio. I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. My guest today is Dr. John Demartini. Love and wisdom was what his first mentor taught him. And he said, you have to learn to read Aristotle and who was the other one? Socrates?
Plato.
Plato. Okay, see? I wasn't listening good. Plato. Carry on with that wonderful story, if you will.
Well, that gentleman, gave me some really meaningful advice. And as I walked out of the place with him, he guided me and directed me onto Interstate 10 back to California, onto California. I didn't know who he was until many years later. And can I share this story? It's a very weird story.
Oh, yeah. You can say anything on this show.
Well, I was in Sydney, Australia, having dinner with Robert Caswell and his wife. Mm-hmm. And Robert Caswell is a movie producer who did The Doctor with William Hurt and many other movies. Mm-hmm. And we were having dinner, and he liked some of my teachings. He's been a student of mine. And he said, we're normally in Malibu, but we're getting our house redone, and the entire interior is being redone by an amazing interior designer. And I said, fabulous. And so we're at our Australian house temporarily. That's why we were having dinner. And so I didn't think much about it, but he said that. And anyway, the next morning I flew off about 11:30 back through LA and on to Houston, Texas. So I went through LA, got an American airline flight, and got into Houston in the evening. And I went directly to the Westin Hotel in the Galleria area of Houston, where my office is attached. And I wanted to eat before I went to my office. So I went to the Cheesecake Factory. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, and sometimes they have a line in there. It's busy. And so I didn't want to wait in line. So I just went to the bar area to try to get a bowl of soup and some bread. And when I did, there was a line there, and there was a pile of people there. And I went, so I'll just stand there because that'll move faster. And at a table was a lady sitting there by herself, just minding her own business. And I thought, if she doesn't have anybody with her, I might see if I can join her to speed up this process. So finally, I saw nobody come after about 10 minutes. I said, ma'am, if I was to buy you dinner, is there any way I could just use your booth? and she said, you don't have to buy me dinner, but you can certainly join me. And I said, lovely. And we started talking. I said, what's your name? And she said, Natalie. And I said, I'm John. And I said, what do you do, Natalie? And she says, I'm an interior designer.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, you're kidding. I said, where do you do interior design? And she said, I do it all over the world. And I thought that was interesting. I said, it's interesting. I was just in Sydney, Australia last night, and I had dinner with a gentleman named Robert Caswell, who was just telling me about an interior designer. So I had interior design in my head, and here you are being an interior designer. And she says, well, not only am I an interior designer, Robert Caswell in Malibu is my client.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I went, you got to be kidding. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned because the 24 hours earlier, I was in one country and talking about this lady. And so I said, well, tell me about yourself. And she started telling me about it. And then she asked me about me. And I told her, well, I travel around the world teaching and consulting and helping people and writing books. And she said, well, how did you ever get started in that? And so I told her the story about my journey. And when I got to El Paso, Texas, and I told her the story about El Paso, Texas, about gaining the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, because what I've dedicated my life to, even the cufflinks I'm wearing right now have love and wisdom on them.
Nice. Still
to this day. And she started crying at the restaurant.
Oh,
and I said, ma'am, did I offend you? And she goes, no. I said, why are you crying? And she said, because that man that you're talking about that gave you that is my family member.
Oh, wow.
I said, how do you know? And she said, and then she quoted things that he said. Uh-huh. She said, he taught all of us that. He said, you can never take away your love and wisdom and gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom. And she started saying things that he said, and I just sat there in shock. And I said, well, who are you? Natalie who? She said, I'm Natalie Hughes. And I went, I said, so what does that mean? I said, well, that was Howard. And I just didn't even understand it because I didn't even know he had kids or anything like that. There was nobody that had kids, supposedly, although there was controversy about it. So this was somehow a cousin or something. I didn't understand it. So, of course, when I did that, I had a shock. She gave me her contact details, and I communicated with her a few times after that. But then I went digging because I thought, is it remotely possible? Because he said he was one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Yeah.
And I thought, why would an old bum on the street say that? Because he just looked like a guy laughing on the street corner. And then I went and dug, and I found out that on that day, and for 2 days, he was doing an El Paso natural gas deal for a brewer he was building in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
And he was there that day, 1968. And I just about flipped out. I got chills up my spine. And I couldn't believe that I got guided by Howard Hughes before he went on to Las Vegas. He became neurotic there. And this is right before that. And he just happened to be doing a deal there. And so when I looked at the picture, I just about, you have no idea what that was like. I was just going, wow, what a great experience to meet a guy like that. But he's the one that taught me, gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
That was a pretty synchronous. But I on that same trip later on, when I got to Blythe, Arizona, right before I got into the border of California.
Yes.
There was a guy. The guy that picked me up was in a Volvo, and he picked me up hitchhiking, and he picked up this other hitchhiker that was this hippie-looking guy that was a gemstone collector out in the desert. And he looked like an interesting character. And so we picked him up hitchhiking. And he asked if he could be taken to Idlewild, California. It's just a few miles off the main highway. And the driver said, sure. He says, I'll pay some gas. Gave him $10. And we drove to this house in this kind of ranch over this cattle garden into this beautiful ranch that has a circular driveway in it. We went inside it because I wanted to relieve my bladder and get some water. And lo and behold, it was Timothy Leary's home.
Oh my gosh.
I went and I met Timothy Leary.
Are you kidding me? And Howard Hughes
and
on
Howard
that trip.
On the same hitchhiking trip to California. And I won't say what I did with Timothy Leary. We did some interesting things. But anyway,
what you have to do with Timothy Leary.
But the point was, I had an adventure.
Yeah.
And I met some interesting people on that adventure. And I stayed in California for a while. Then I hitchhiked down to Mexico, and I was just a surf kid,
So when did it come to you? I guess when you met Paul, is that when it came? When did it come to you? Start learning to read and like really settle in and become a doctor of chiropractor. Like when did that happen?
I didn't do that. At 15, I went off to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then I socially climbed. I started out living underneath a bridge at Sunset Beach, Kamehameha Highway. Then I moved into Iukai Beach Park and lived under a park bench. Then I moved into a bathroom.
Oh my
and then
goodness.
Finally an abandoned car. And, I just kept social climbing until I had a tent and a grass house combination. And I was surfing every day and doing what surfer kids did, and hanging out and eating just eating off the land and stuff and eating whatever you could and just kind of doing it. And I was accumulating strychnine and cyanide poisoning from some of the plants that I was eating without realizing. Wow. There was a plant that grew out right on the beach that had that, and it almost killed me.
Wow.
And I was unconscious for 3.5 days. And luckily a lady found me in my tent and took me to a health food store, which then led me to go to a yoga class where Paul Bragg was speaking. And
sorry, I guess for one second. Did they realize that you had strychnine from this plant? Like, did they know that's what could?
Yeah. We figured that out, because at first I thought it was because I was surfing 11 hours a day that I had electrolyte imbalances, but it turned out that it was a toxicity because it stopped my diaphragm, and when your diaphragm stops, daylights out of you.
So Paul Bragg, wow.
So I met Paul Bragg at this little Sunset Recreation Waimea Bay talk he did. There's about 35 kids sitting on a wooden floor on little mats and towels. And this guy spoke. And I'm telling you, when this guy spoke, you listened. And he inspired me that night. And he, that night, told us that we had a body, we had a mind, and we had a soul. The body must be directed by the mind must be guided by the soul if we want to maximize our life. And he said that we must set goals for ourselves, our family, our community, our city, our state, our nation, our world, and beyond for 100, 120 years. And pursue what it is that's in our heart that we want to go after. And no one ever talked to me like this. I was, that wasn't the modus operandi. Mm-hmm. And that was the night that for the first time in my life, I thought maybe I could overcome my learning problems. Maybe I could learn to read. Maybe I could become intelligent. And I thought intelligent people were like teachers. So I thought I want to be a teacher and I want to travel the world and I want to learn and I want to overcome my learning problems. And then I spent 3 weeks studying with Paul Bragg each morning. He had a little class each morning. Most of them were 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old people, but I was a teenager there. But I was 17 at the time, right before my 18th birthday. And I learned everything I could from the guy. And I started meditating. I started eating differently. I started, thinking differently. I stopped any forms of any things I was doing. I started eating wisely. I got me a little a job at making toast.
At least you got toast.
Yeah. And I started, my life changed. And when one day during a meditation, in the meditation, it said, it's time to see your parents, time to go home. Okay. The surf was coming down in the spring. And so I said, all right. So I flew, I always had enough money to fly back from Honolulu to LA. And I hitchhiked back to Texas. And my parents, when I got back, they encouraged me to take a GED because I didn't have a high school degree.
Yeah.
And I guessed and passed.
Wow.
I just guessed. And Paul Bragg said that I need to say to myself every single day that I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom and never miss a day for the rest of my life, which I never missed. I still do it. And I passed that. I passed a college test, an entrance test. And then I started to try to go back to college, try to go to school. And I failed. I mean, I just bombed it. I thought by guessing at those tests, I thought I was going to make it easy, guess all the way through. But
sure.
It turned out that I didn't work that way.
Yeah, sometimes you can't keep guessing. We're going to go to commercial break in 15 seconds. But, as guessing intuition, at its best. Sometimes I think it is. But, as we said at the very beginning, sometimes life is not always easy. But it's not hard. Okay, we're going to go to a break. We'll be right back with Dr. John Demartini. Thank you.
Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's words you never heard.
Did you hear about Wesley, the golden retriever puppy from Michigan that was fitted with braces? Before you think this is a bona fide insanity, Wesley was born with teeth that were so crooked he couldn't shut his mouth all the way. This was affecting his ability to eat properly. So his owners took him to the Harborfront Hospital for Animals and Veterinary Dental Solutions, where a doggy orthodontist prescribed him a set of braces. And now, pictures of Wesley smiling with his bright, shiny braces have been circling the internet. With all that metal wrapped around their teeth, some would think that most dogs would become bruxomaniacs, but not Wesley. He doesn't mind the braces at all, and is now able to eat his food with gusto. A bruxomaniac is someone with an uncontrollable urge to grind their teeth.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
A study done by the University of North Carolina found that Americans are not only eating more, we are eating more often. From 1977 to 2006, the number of daily meals and snacks increased from 5 to 7. The study also cited that we are consuming 570 more calories per day than we were in the late 1970s. The meal portions have stabilized in recent years, but the total number of calories consumed is rising. Eating 5 to 7 small, healthy meals throughout the day, instead of eating just 3 large meals, keeps your metabolism revved up and keeps your hunger away. But the operative word here is small. Choose fresh fruit, vegetables, and low-calorie nutritious food for your meals, along with daily exercise. I'm Annette Hammond. To hear other fitness and weight loss tips, visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
And we're back with Dr. John Demartini. You are listening to Mission Unstoppable Radio. And I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. Before we went to break, we had met Paul Bragg, and you went back home to Texas, and you wrote your GED, and you did some courses, and then you found yourself, you passed, and then here you found yourself failing at something, and it's like, wait a minute, what happened here?
Yeah, well, I did fail my first test in college. And I really was distraught. I mean, I all I could hear is my first grade teacher talking in my head. And I went driving home, and I just curled up in a fetal position and under this Bible stand my mom has, which I have in my office today. And my mom came home from shopping, and she saw me laying there, and she said, "Son, what happened? What's wrong?" She hadn't seen me cry in years. And I said, "I blew it. I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess I won't be able to read and write and communicate and things." And she said, "Son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher and travel the world like you say you want to do, whether you return to Hawaii and ride big waves like you've done, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a street kid, I just want to let you know that your dad and I are going to love you no matter what." And that was exactly what I needed to hear at that moment. Because when she said that, my hand went into a fist, and I said, "I'm going to master this thing called reading and studying and learning and teaching. And I'm going to do whatever it takes, travel whatever distance, and pay whatever price to give my service of love. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me, not even myself." And I hugged my mom, and I went in my room, and I got a dictionary out, and I started memorizing 30 words a day. And my mom tested me on the spelling, pronunciation, and meaning of those words until my vocabulary was strong enough to pass school. And boy, I took off from there.
Tell us again, I am a genius.
And I apply my wisdom.
And
That's
I
what he
apply
gave
my
me.
wisdom. I'm a genius, and I apply my wisdom. And, in the breakthrough experience, after every chapter, you do these exercises, and you give us some mantras and affirmation. And I just love no matter what I have done or have not done, I'm worthy of love. And that is like such a huge relief, I'm sure, for so many people. Yeah.
I had a boy. I was doing a program in 1990 in San Francisco, and a lady attending it said, "Is there any way I could steal you at lunch and take you to the hospital and meet a boy who's dying of AIDS?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we went there, and we walked into this hospital room where he was literally emaciated and just he was not doing well. And I just sat on the edge of the bed, and I looked at this boy, and he was looking down. He barely looked at you. And I went over to him, and I said, "No matter what you've done or not done, you're worthy of love. No matter what you've done or not done, you're worthy of love." And I made him repeat that. No matter what I've done or not done, I'm worthy of love. And the guy just started repeating it and started bawling because he had accumulated all this judgment inside him.
Yeah, of course.
All this shame and guilt because of his sexuality and because of, I guess, some of the things he's done. And he just cried. And he leaned over onto me. He leaned up and leaned over onto me and literally onto my on the bed there, and I just kind of gave this guy a hug, and he just cried and cried and cried. And he came out of that hospital.
Really?
Yeah, he came out of that hospital, and he rallied. He did eventually die, but he rallied for 6 months, and it was amazing. And I just don't know what the limitation of what love does. I don't know. I think I've said in my book, To Count Your Blessings, The Healing Power of Gratitude and Love, that gratitude and love, certainty and presence are the 4 cardinal pillars of healing.
Wow. I know that, and I'm sure you know this too, Emile Coué, in the hospitals back in like the 1800s would tell patients to say, every day I'm getting better and better. And every day, patients were coming out of the hospital because of these affirmations. So affirmations certainly are powerful, and they work. And it worked in your life because you still have wisdom and love on your cufflinks today. So look at you.
Well, because of Howard Hughes, that I never forgot it. He told me never forget it. I never forgot it. I didn't know it was Howard Hughes at the time, but I just trusted the guy because he gave me some incredible advice. And so I have both gold and silver ones that my students have given me because they've heard me say the story. They've made these beautiful cufflinks, and I wear them pretty well every day. And they're special meaning to me. They're a reminder of that moment with Howard in that library.
Well, every day you help people find love. You help them transform their negativity, their hate, their intense dislikes of others into transformation and finding the love in their experiences in their life, and all of them. And people go from being the victim and be to understanding why these things happen in their life. You are a perfect example of that. However, people might say, well, he's 1 in a million. Look what it was during the 60s or whatever. People make excuses for everything, right? But you have come up with, in your breakthrough experience, it's quantifiable. It's over and over and over. The same system worked for thousands of people. Let's just talk about that a little bit, because there has to be good with bad. There has to be love with hate. There has to be a balance.
Well, what I did is I noticed back in the 70s, I noticed that many times when I would talk to people and I would sometimes project my values onto them and give them advice, I would notice that sometimes the advice I was giving them was for me.
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that whatever I said to them that I emphasized was usually for me. And I thought, well, that's kind of a reflection. And then I knew about reflective awareness, that the highest awareness is reflective. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is for an exercise, I went to the Oxford Dictionary and I circled every behavioral trait that I could find in the dictionary. And I found 4,628 of them.
Wow.
And I went through them, and then I thought of who in my life is the most extreme example of demonstrating that trait. So that could be nice, mean, kind, cruel, generous, stingy, honest, dishonest, whatever the trait is. And or behavioral action or inaction, and I'd write out the name of the most extreme example, and then I would look within myself through my from childhood till current, and I'd say, so where and when have I displayed this trait, and who have I demonstrated it to, and who's seen me do it? Mm-hmm. And I went and I identified all 4,628 traits in me, and then I realized that whatever anybody said about me, it was true. It may not be true in the context that they're setting, but somewhere in my life, it was true. And so I created the beginning of the Demartini method, which we first identify the traits, actions, or inactions that we admire or despise most in people. And then we go in and identify where and when do we display and demonstrate them, and to who and who sees it in us, until it's quantitatively and qualitatively equal to what we project as our label on them. And I've done that on 80,000 people now, plus. And well, actually, that's just in the breaks experience, and then all the consults. It's probably close to 100,000 people.
Wow!
And my 4,000 facilitators have done it on probably another 250,000. So we have done that, and we've demonstrated that you won't see something in other people that you don't have, and that whatever you resent on the outside represents something you feel shame and guilt about on the inside, and whatever you admire on the outside is representing something you feel proud of on the inside. And we're just too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside us. And so when we actually wake up and have reflective awareness, where the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same, we become aware of that. And it helps us transcend some of the judgment we have. It helps us appreciate and love ourselves and other people more effectively.
Okay, I have to ask you, this is a personal question. I have to ask it because I went through the whole book. I read it and I got it. And, I had a motorcycle great pain now, very 15 years later, it's worse than it used to be. And I go, okay, I understand why the accident happened. I get that. I get all the lessons I got from it. But, why does it continue? When does it end? The lesson end? Okay, I get it. Lesson could be over now. How do we get it to end?
Well, pain is a private sensation of hurt that John Bonica, a leading specialist in pain over the last few decades, have stated. And there's two types. There's neurological pain and glial pain. And neurological pain is usually, that means that there's some sort of an ischemic or injury to a cell somehow. Mm-hmm. An inflammatory response is active. And that's an acute pain. And that's usually lasts, days, sometimes weeks. And then there's chronic glial pain. And normal nerve receptors and nerve transmitters being inhibited for pain, like procaine and these types of things, they don't work on glial pain. They work on neural pain. And glial pain, they found out, is induced by unconscious motives. And so we have to go and dig and find the unconscious motives, because now I'll give you an example. I had a lady in the hotel in Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, and Merriam Hotel. And she had 57 years of pain, she claimed. Wow. 57 years. So she was up in age, and she was 57 years of chronic pain. And so I sat her down right there in the lobby, private area. And I said, so I'm going to ask you a very simple question. What is the benefit you're getting out of it? And she says, there's no benefit to pain. I said, no, there is. And there's a book that's called by Milton Ward called The Brilliant Function of Pain that I made every patient read before I would accept them as a patient.
That. And The Brilliant Function of Pain.
Brilliant Function of Pain by Milton Ward. And what it was, a simple, small book, and it outlined people who did not have the power or ability to feel pain and what their life was like without the ability to have pain. And they would run into things, bump into things, injure themselves. They couldn't feel pain. And I made every patient do it so they would appreciate the purpose of pain.
Right.
Because pain and pleasure are feedback mechanisms to guide us into a balanced perspective on life. And so anyway, that's a side tangent. But I made this lady answer this question. And as she was starting to answer the question, she came to a realization and burst into tears. And she finally realized that her sister was very intelligent, highly active in sports, and excelled in almost everything, socially, academic, sports. She was popular, and she was attractive, and so she got prom queen, this kind of stuff. She was excelling, and nothing she could do to compete with her sister except have pain.
Oh, wow.
That was the only way she could get competition as far as attention from the parents and from people.
So the pleasure came from the attention.
So the pleasure she was getting, because every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values in their life.
Right.
And every decision they make is a result of what they believe will give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage, greatest reward of a risk, greatest benefit or drawback. They won't continue to do something unless there's an unconscious motive. So we uncovered that in the lady right there, and we found 17 major tear-jerking unconscious motives that were sitting there. And
oh my God, we got to go to commercial, John. We got to go to commercial. But we will be right back with Dr. John Demartini. Don't you want to hear the rest? I do. 17. Wow. Be right back. Don't go anywhere.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Do you ever wonder if you're the only woman who runs errands in her yoga pants so it will look like she went to the gym? Or how about the only mom who feeds her kids raw cookie dough? Or are you the only one who cooks her family cold cereal for dinner? Do you need more laughter and less loudness? More self-love and less self-loathing? More joy and less judgment? You're not alone. Come to the living room, a place where we get comfy, candid, and confident together. Come seeking sanctuary and leave feeling renewed. We're saving a seat for you. Give yourself some living room today.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
I am not an advocate of eating fast food. With a little planning and self-control, you can skip the fast food restaurants and keep to your low-calorie, healthy eating. But I also know that the holidays are hectic, and many more Americans opt to eat fast food because of time crunches. If that's you, be mindful of what you are ordering. First, choose water instead of soda. That one decision can drastically cut the calories. Second, be aware of what you are eating. Just because it's a salad doesn't mean it's healthy or low calorie. Many have fried chicken, bacon, or are loaded with cheese. Some fast food restaurants offer healthy choices like yogurt, oatmeal, veggie subs, and turkey wraps. Look for meals under 350 calories. Take time to study the menu and make good choices. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
Sorry, because I can't really And we're back with Dr. John Demartini. If you've just tuned in, it's Mission Unstoppable Radio. He was telling a fascinating story about this woman who is in pain for 57 years, and they uncovered 17 reasons and one major one. Let's carry on with that. That's fascinating.
Well, we uncovered tremendous amount of motives that she had because it became a way of life. Mm-hmm. This is what is called chronic glial pain. And when we got these 17 different issues, all were tear-jerking issues. We actually came up with more than 17, but 17 were tear-jerkers, and those are the ones I'm looking for. And she had a motive, and she looked at me, and she said, is it remotely possible that I've done this to myself? And I said, what do you think? Mm-hmm. Well, not only did when she cried and had these deep realizations, these are all deep unconscious realizations. Mm-hmm. When we finished, she didn't have pain.
Wow.
And she cried now out of a gratitude.
Yeah.
She just had a realization that she had the power. See, pain, there's nociception, which is pain. And it's a small C fibers. They go from the skin and various joint capsules and various parts of the body up into through the thalamus. So it's a thalamic response, not a cortical response. And the cortex can overrule the thalamus. And there's mechanoreceptors that have larger diameter neurons that can go and beat out the C fibers in conduction. And they can literally, that's why if you bruise yourself, you'll rub your leg and you'll scratch it really quick. Mm-hmm. Because those stimulate mechanoreceptors to shut down the pain and release endorphins. And so what she was doing without even realizing it was these unconscious mechanisms to try to reduce her pain, which were actually partly effective. But she was dwelling on the pain and getting sympathy from the pain and getting attention from pain. And that was her modus operandi. You've met people like that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My mother was
story. They run their story as victims of history instead of masters of destiny. And she was doing that until she met me. And that was a turning point. And I'm very grateful that I got to meet her because I saw that was a pretty extreme example.
Oh, my gosh, that is amazing. I mean, and I look at my own mother who was like that, a martyr in her pain, and I'm never going to be like that. And so I kept saying, I can't be that. That can't be my story. I can't find this, unconditional or underlying automatic commitment to pain because I don't want that to be my story. But let's just go to gratitude because I think it's really important. You talk about gratitude in your book and about what real gratitude is when you're really truly grateful for what you have in your life. Let's just talk about your definition of it for a moment, if we can.
Well, there's two types of gratitude. In the way the human brain and mind is working is that we have a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in our life that we live by. And whenever we're living aligned and congruent with what we value most, the blood glucose and oxygen goes up into the executive center, the medial prefrontal cortex, the forebrain, mm-hmm. where we have inspired vision, foresight, strategic planning, executing plans, and self-governance. We have mastery there. And in there, we have a tremendous capacity to overrule pain sensations. But when we're doing things low on our values, primarily because we're comparing ourselves to others, minimizing ourselves to others that we look up to, and then injecting some of their values and attempting to be somebody we're not, envying them and imitating them and mm-hmm. living in their shadows instead of standing on their shoulders, we go into our amygdala area of the brain, which is more inner region of the brain. And there we try to avoid pain and seek pleasure, avoid predator, seek prey, mm-hmm. avoid challenge and seek support, avoid shame and seek pride. And we strive for a one-sided world. And as the Buddha says, the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering. And so we are striving for a futile attempt to get a one-sided life, whereas the executive center embraces objectively both sides. So when we are pursuing both sides of life and set goals that are balanced, we can achieve them and have self-worth, and the endorphins and enkephalons and all the chemical compounds that help us be resilient come online. But the second we're not, and we're living by lower values because we're subordinating and living in the shadows of people, we automatically go into the areas that induce the searching for dopamine. And as long as we're searching for a one-sided world, the other side smacks us very hardly. And we have distress, And we end up having a high vulnerability because we're trying to avoid pain. We have a high vulnerability and sensation of pain when we're challenged. And so this is the area that accentuates the response from glial pain.
So just to understand, what I was reading in your book, to paraphrase, when we're living in the past, living in the future, not so great. But when we are present, then everything is balanced and good.
Well, when a perfectly balanced mind opens the heart with gratitude. Mm-hmm. And when the heart opens, out comes love, and that window washes the mind and inspires the mind and brings enthusiasm to the body and certainty and presence. And when we're not, and we're searching for a one-sided world, we're searching for a gratitude when it supports us, and we're ungrateful when things challenge us.
Yeah.
When we're living by our highest value, we embrace support and challenge equally in the pursuit of a purpose and meaning, as Viktor Frankl would say. And that is true grace. Mm-hmm. So there's a human gratitude, thank you, thank you, thank you, and a human ingratitude, screw you, screw you, screw you. And then there's true grace, where we can see the hidden order in our apparent chaos, and we embrace the two sides of life equally, simultaneously. And we see the balance of life inherent in the event that we first initially judged imbalanced and divided our mind into conscious and unconscious components.
If you want to live the life that you were meant to live, if you want to live with deep love and gratitude for the kind of life that you really want, not maybe the one you're living, you must seek out Dr. John Demartini. You must read his books and just follow all of his examples and everything that he tells you to do, because you can be living and doing exactly what you want and not worrying about how it's going to happen or the money or anything like that. It takes work. Everything takes work, but you can be doing it. And I think that's pretty exciting news, because everybody can have what they want.
If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it is designed to fill up with low priority distractions. It doesn't.
Right.
If you don't fill your day with challenges that inspire you by solving people's problems and helping people, caring, your life is going to fill up with challenges that don't. And if you don't fill your day with things that are productive and meaningful and something that produces an income, you're not going to live an inspired life, because you won't have the income to delegate lower priority things that trap you in mediocrity. So it's essential that you prioritize your life according to what you really value, not what you fantasize, but what you really value. Because there's something that's really high in your values, you will embrace pain and pleasure in the pursuit of it.
One thing that I know that everybody must ask you, because you talk about it a lot, is what's my purpose? We're all here with a divine purpose to do something. And everybody wants to know what their purpose, because if they're living in their purpose, they're going to be happy. So which of, your tapes, your books, your presentations, whatever, would people who are really looking for their purpose, what would be the best place to start for them?
Well, I think my more recent book, the Values Factor book, can be very helpful in that arena. I also have Purpose Life's Driving Force, which is a CD that's out that I've done. But here's what I found. Your highest value. So I created a value determination process, mm-hmm. which everybody who may be listening, if they would like to take 30 minutes of their time to go through it, they can go on my website, drdemartini.com, go on the menu, go, and you'll see a value determine your values. And it's a 30-minute process that asks 13 questions. You fill it in. It's electronically done. It's private. No one will ever see it except you. And you can do it again and do it over a period of time to confirm it. And it will help you determine what you value most. And whatever the highest value is, the ancient Greeks called that the telos, the end in mind. Napoleon Hill called it the chief aim. Mm-hmm. But that highest value is the purpose. Mm-hmm. The study of that teleology is the study of meaning and purpose. That's the most meaningful, the most inspiring, most fulfilling, most purposeful thing we can do. And our purpose is inherently in our life. Our life demonstrates our values. And I had a lady in London. I'm here in London right now. And I had it with a lady about 4 years ago in London in the Breakthrough Experience program that I was doing. And she said, Dr. Demartini, I don't know what my purpose is. And I said, look right now. I confronted her on the spot. I said, right now, what do you do every day that you never have to be reminded to do, that you can't wait to get up in the morning and do, that you're inspired to do, that you love doing? And she looked at me and she goes, I love spending time with my kids. I love being with my kids. I love my kids. I said, does anybody have to remind you to do that? No. Is that something you love doing? Yes. Is that what you're inspired by, watching them grow and taking care of them? Yes. I said, ma'am, the only reason why you don't know what your purpose is because you're comparing your life, which is demonstrating that your life is dedicated to your children. Mm-hmm. You're comparing your life to other people that have different values, and you're expecting yourself to be somebody you're not. And you're injecting the values of other people that you're admiring, and it's clouding the clarity of what you're called to do because you want to raise beautiful children. And I said to Rose Kennedy, the founder of the Kennedy family, her mission statement, which I have a copy of, was that I want to dedicate my life to raising a family of world leaders. I said, you may be here to raise a magnificent family and do something extraordinary. And she just burst into tears. She said, that's all I've ever wanted to do. I just want to raise a beautiful family. And I said, well, then give yourself permission to do that and quit comparing yourself to people. Because if you compare yourself to other people, and you're like a fish comparing yourself to a cat, and you'll think you beat yourself up because you can't climb a tree, or you're a cat comparing yourself to a fish because you can't swim. But if you compare yourself to your own dreams and your own actions and your own values, you'll honor yourself and you'll be inspired by a mission and you'll be called into action. This lady changed and gave herself permission to be herself instead of comparing herself to other people. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. We're not here to imitate anybody or try to be somebody we're not. The magnificence of who we are is far greater than any fantasies we'll impose on ourselves that we're supposed to be somebody else.
Wow. Now, did I read that you read something like, I don't know, how many 56,000 books or something like crazy like that? Is that true? No. Probably way over that now.
No, it's not that. I've read about 30,000 books, and 30,000 about 100 books. From
a boy who was told he'd never be able to read.
Well,
how inspiring is that? We got 1 minute till the end of the show. I'm going to give you the floor.
The very thing that they said I would never do is what I've ended up doing. Mm-hmm. They said I'd never read. I've been an enormous reader. Never write. I've done a lot of writing. Said I'd never mount a thing. I'm quite well off now.
Of course.
I said I'd never communicate. I've reached a lot of people and never go very far. I've traveled 18 million miles on planes. So
I am so grateful to have you here today. We got 30 seconds less than that. So I do want to thank you so very much for coming on the show today. And I'm so grateful that you took a moment out of your time. You're in London hotel room talking to us. And I know everybody listening appreciates that so very much. Thank you, Dr. John Demartini.
Thank you.
Isn't that fantastic? Come back next week for another Mission Unstoppable. See you Thursday for Frankie Sense and more.
Stop.
When the chips were down, they didn't stop. Stories of people who, when the odds were against them, turned defeat into victory. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. See you next time, and always remember...
Don't stop.